In the
Yeah, sure.
meantime, I wanted to just chat with everybody about writing prompts and how we're going to start using writing prompts tomorrow. So I've been on the phone with Ram and we've kind of got a plan worked out. So I can just brief everybody on that
Sure.
while you get things going with Kiriti. Okay, so I can see a lot of people who've been here, and I got some galis for showing you pictures of the snow. But before we get started, Anshuman, especially from you, before we get started, I want to show you even more pictures of the snow because it's actually been snowing here for the last 2 days. We haven't had light for 3 days. The light came back like 15 minutes ago. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been in this call on my laptop. I would have been on my phone. But I'll give you a quick glimpse outside.
Awesome.
So all the white stuff.
Oh, that's the salt you are rubbing on us, right? On the hills?
And that's the big mountains there. And this is the other side of the valley. No.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Lovely.
Beautiful.
So you do know that I'm just buying time till Kiriti can join us. But might as well have some fun while we're at it. Okay. So now coming to the writing prompts. So is Ram here? Yes, of course.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So we had a chat last week, and Ram has come up with a very nice, very thought through framework for how we should be planning the prompts. You don't have to worry about all that. That's my job. And Ram has given me a nice push. But what we will do is from tomorrow onwards, I'll be sharing one writing prompt in the group every morning. I'm an early riser. So every morning might be around whatever, 5 or 6, something like that. And then you'll have that prompt available for the day. And it will come with some directions. The purpose of the prompt or how it's helpful is that we'll really be looking at a short burst of writing that you can do, but that can give you some direction that can get you started, right? Maybe a couple of hundred words, asking for a particular type of writing. A prompt can be a set of words. The prompt can be a picture. So we'll use a mix of different kinds of prompts, but we'll be starting that from tomorrow. Ram, anything you want to add on that, especially from FDC 4?
Not really, Chetan. I think you captured it well. The only thing that I will say is that in the FDC 4, I think when we had rolled out the prompt, what feedback we had got was that though the writing prompts were in no way related to what people were writing, this gave a little bit of an external push to sit down and write. And that helped people to start writing their own projects. So it sort of starts, lets the creative juices flow. It breaks that writer's block, whatever procrastination, lethargy that we have for writing, it breaks that. So it was helpful. And there is no pressure, right? I mean, you're writing your work, there's a lot of pressure that it has to be in a certain way. It has to be good. It has to be nice. All that is there in a writing prompt that's not there. It's just a random prompt. So it helps people. So I will really encourage people to respond to those prompts.
Yeah. And so I was just looking at the stats, by the way. I don't know if you had a chance to look at them, Ram. 6 days and we are 111,000 words. That's probably a record, right?
This is a record. Yeah, I think this is probably the highest. If we leave out the first FDC, where I think in the first week, a similar number where there were more people, of course. First FDC one, we had, I think, 63 or something. And we did about 125 or something in the first week. This is really good. In fact, 5 days, we clocked about 75,000 here.
Yeah, the thing is that in the first FDC, it was free. Yeah. So a lot of people didn't show up.
Correct.
And it was a very wishy-washy kind of FDC. After that, we brought in this donation to Chirag School. So that, once you've donated even 250, it makes a big difference to just mentally that you signed up for something. It wasn't just saying, haan, main kar lunga. So I think FDC 1 was probably not that representative, but yeah. So how has it been going as far as writing is concerned, folks? Any thoughts, feedback, how anybody wants to share?
I think I've written more systematically than I have in years.
That's a big deal coming from you.
I mean, fiction, of course, not journalism.
Okay. Anyone else?
You know, like after a whole day of writing, because I'm a content writer, most often what happens is like, मैंने सारा दिन लिखा, I don't want to write anymore. This was the first time. Okay, fine, I still have to write on my own project, so I pushed myself. So yes, I missed days, but I still did it, though I was fatigued of writing the whole day as it is. So that is a new thing for me.
My biggest triumph is I wrote. I mean, after a really long time, like Humpy said, I too am a content writer. And this week was a very, I was swamped with a lot of work because I joined a new job this week. So induction process and all went on. And despite that, I did write. So my monthly target was 5,000. I wrote 1,100 words or so in this week. So at least I wrote, which is a big deal for me, I would say.
Fantastic.
I think belonging to a community helps. For me, I think in a month, what I write, I may not write all that much in 3 months' time. So belonging here and knowing that somebody is looking out for me and is going to encourage me, I think that really works wonders, Chetan.
So that, Rita.
Hi, Kirti. Are you able to hear us now?
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Yeah, great. I think you've not turned on your video. Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to the session. Chetan, this is Kirti. Kirti, that's Chetan. He's the co-founder of the Himalayan Writing Retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you have to come up with, like, on Facebook, I call myself the Chief Faffing Officer. So maybe that's a better one. But
Chief what?
Go ahead, Namrata, please.
Faffing Officer.
Okay.
Yeah, so to let you all know briefly about Kiriti, Kiriti Sengupta is a poet, translator, and publisher from Calcutta. He's been awarded the 2018 Rabindranath Tagore Literary Prize for his contribution to literature. Sorry?
Can the rest of us mute ourselves, please, including me?
Sengupta is the chief editor of Ethos Literary Journal. He's also the co-founder of Havakal Publishers. To let you know more about Havakal Publishers, they began their journey in 2009. Having passed a decade's struggle in the publishing industry, it has emerged as one of the foremost independent presses in India, working simultaneously on Bengali and English literature. One of the most interesting aspects that I found about Havakal was the way they came out with books during the pandemic when a lot of publishing houses were not able to bring out books. So we welcome Kirti to the session. Kirti, our first question to you would be, as a poet and a publisher, what are your thoughts on the publishing opportunities for poets in India today?
Namrata, first things first, thank you so much for inviting me for this session. And for your information and for all of like everybody's information, I belong to Kolkata, but I live in Delhi.
Okay.
Okay. And I am not the co-founder of Havakal Publishers. I'm one of the directors of Havakal Publishers. The founder is, that Havakal has one founder. It got founded by Bitan Chakraborty.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So about the poetry scenario in India, it's really promising. In just one line, it's really promising to publish poets, both new voices, emerging voices, and established seasoned voices together. So days are brighter than before because there are a few publishers who are publishing poets quite regularly these days. We have our contemporary houses who are publishing poets quite frequently. So what else would like to inquire?
See, most of the traditional publishers or literary agents in India do not accept poetry, as per their submission guidelines. And
we are a traditional press.
Yeah.
Setting the facts right up front. Havakal Publishers is a traditional press. We publish poetry, fiction, and non-fiction, all the genres of literature traditionally, which means we do not charge a single penny to our authors.
Right.
And I think we are not alone. There are publishers, yeah, they, the number is a handful of publishers who publish all the genres of literature traditionally, in spite of being independent publishers. Yeah, you cannot approach a big house for your poetry. It's a fact. It's a fact that, because not everybody, not all the traditional houses, they accept poetry, because there is a common saying that poetry does not sell that way, that much in the market.
Yeah, true.
But we have to keep this in mind that poetry, it was never sold in, in good quantities before. It's not about today's market. Poetry always, enjoys a niche market. Few people read poetry, there are few takers, few buyers of poetry. But as a publisher, I think this is my firm belief that we should always take chances. We should promote poetry. Overall, above all, we should, inspire, encourage the emerging voices, as long as we are in this industry.
Right. So what makes you choose a manuscript at Havakal?
Basically, Namrata, it is the quality of the work. Whether we are publishing poetry, we are publishing fiction or non-fiction, or a memoir, we look out for the quality of the work. If the quality of the work is, is standard, is good enough, we have no problem in publishing that particular writer or a poet.
Okay. So how much do author credentials matter at the time of selecting their work for publication, in the sense that they've done, they've attended some creative writing courses, or they've been won awards?
Yeah. This is a very common question, Namrata. A lot of people, they keep asking me, they keep asking Bitan, they keep asking us whether these credentials matter at all. And to which I always, I always say that credentials do not matter at all. Now, I will give you a few examples here.
Sure.
You are aware of this book. This is Hesitancies by Sanjeev Sethi. Now, people keep asking, social media presence matters or not. When we published Hesitancies by Sanjeev Sethi, he had no social media presence. When I say social media, I hint at Facebook, I hint at Twitter or Instagram.
Right.
Because in those days, he had, he had no account on these platforms.
Right.
But if you search Sanjeev Sethi on Google, he is everywhere. In all major literary journals, you can find Sanjeev Sethi quite easily, frequently published across the globe, across the world. So presence in the social media, it really does not matter whether we would take up a project for publication or not. Now, when we published this, this book, this is Bird Songs of Love and Despair. It's by Vivek Nath Mishra. Vivek Nath Mishra, he has some social media presence. But when we published, this is his first book. Okay.
Right.
So when we published this book, it's a collection of his short stories. Then very few people actually knew about Vivek Mishra.
Right.
Very few people. Now, many people, many readers, they are aware of Vivek Nath Mishra because of his first book that Havakal published, that we published. But in those days, be it his social media presence or his presence in the internet, on Google or on search engines, it was really negligible. Taking another example, this is a book of non-fiction. So I gave you an example of poetry by Sanjeev Sethi. I gave you the second example of a collection of short fiction by Vivek Nath Mishra. And I'm giving you another example of non-fiction. It's Gigi. it's the trials and tribulations of Parveena Iyengar,
Right.
the famous lady in Kashmir who
Mhm.
looks after the people who got lost.
Right.
So this is practically sort of a memoir of the author, wherein the author used to meet Parveena Iyengar for some university project.
Mm.
When we published Yunus Ahmad Kalu, he lives in Kashmir. Kashmir people, they don't enjoy that amount of presence on social media, especially Yunus. When we published him, his presence was negligible. We selected his work. He approached us with his manuscript. We selected his work based on the merit of the work.
Mm.
So, finally, what happens is we look for the merit.
Right.
Whether it holds any merit or not, whether the author is present on the social media, whether the author can be found on the internet, these come, these things come next.
Mm.
First and foremost is the quality of the work. Whether it can reach the readers, whether it has the substance to reach out to the readers. This is another book. This is a collection of short stories. This is by Professor Nishi Pulugurtha. She is a Calcutta-based academician, and this is her first collection of short stories. She is an academic for the past few decades, Namrata. But remember, this is her first collection of short fiction. So when we published her, we didn't try to find whether she would sell. We focused on the merit of her stories.
Right.
So giving you another example, this is a book by journalist
We have a large
Neha
number of
Bhura.
questions that we want to ask. So
can
we go through the questions, please? We've already done 5 books just now.
Okay.
Namrata, go ahead.
So it is said that, what is your view on the future of poetry as a genre and poetry books in India? What do you think in the next few coming years? Do you think the top 5 publishing houses will also start accepting poetry?
The days are brighter, I can say. The days are brighter.
Can you also tell us, usually the belief is that in traditional publishing, the wait is too long. Like when I send you my manuscript, when the publishing house get back to us, and by the time we get a date, it's like 1.5 years. So can you explain how much time does Havakal take actually to, come the manuscript to fruition?
Usually our reading time is, Namrata, it varies. It varies on the workload. Suppose you're submitting a manuscript today. Given the workload that we have currently, it won't take not less than 4 to 5 months to respond.
Okay.
So it depends on the workload of the publisher, how fast the publisher can respond to the author.
Right. So by the time you respond and then you give us a publishing date, is it like 1 year from the time of submission? Say you've selected the manuscript.
It happens usually sooner than what we expect.
Okay. So every poet that we have hosted on FDC or who has participated in FDC or our poetry workshops have shared how difficult it is to get poetry published. So can you share 5 tips for every poet who wants to get published?
Read more poetry, read more journals that focus poetry, read classic stuff, and keep yourself updated with the recent development as far as the craft is concerned. These are the tips to all aspiring poets.
That's been very helpful. Chetan, you had some questions to ask? Chetan, are you there?
Yeah. I muted myself. So the first one is, how do you, do you work closely with literary agents? Is there a strong relationship there, or is it mostly direct submissions that people do with Havakol? How does that work?
We work directly with the authors because, authors, they write to us directly.
Okay.
But then there are a few agents who approach us as well.
Okay.
But, suppose if we discuss 100 books, out of 100 books, we have published 95 books directly when we, yeah. So 95 authors, they approached us directly through email. The rest 5 books were done through the agents.
So for poetry, these are genres you talk about.
You are inaudible.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So we've talked about non.
Again, inaudible.
Okay. Is this any better?
Yes, this is fine.
There's a jinx. I think every time I say, can you hear me? You can hear me. The rest of the time, you can't hear me. But I'll try and speak up some more, okay? All right. So my question was, we talked about fiction, non-fiction, and poetry.
Yeah.
So are literary agents good people to go to for all three? Or,
they hardly
accept submissions for all three directly?
They hardly approach us for poetry because, in India, Havakal is a name in poetry scene, Indian poetry in English, Havakal is a name. They usually do not accept poetry submissions in the first place. So they are not likely to approach us for a poetry book. They usually approach us for fiction and non-fiction or a memoir.
Okay, all right. And in terms of the distribution, because that's to me one of the big differentiators for traditional publishing. Mm-hmm. So Havakol being based in Calcutta, right?
Havakal is based in Delhi and Calcutta.
Okay. So where is your distribution, strength? Is it more north and east? Is it pan-India?
Chetan, we have a pan-India presence.
Okay.
Since we work very closely with a national distributor, it's a Variety Book Depot in Delhi. Okay. So our books can be procured from any corner in India.
Okay. And this is physical distribution, like in bookstores?
Yeah, in bookstore. If somebody wants to procure our books, they can procure it from the distributor whom we work with.
Okay. All right. Awesome. And if I may ask, if you're comfortable answering this question, but what kind of sales volume does one actually look at with a poetry book? Heard all kinds of numbers, everything, from 50 all the way up to, thousands.
Usually with the poetry books, as far as poetry titles are concerned, our first print run is usually 200 copies.
Okay.
So if we can sell these 200 copies in the first 6 months, if we are able to sell these 200 copies, which comprise the first print run, then we call the title successful, because selling 200 copies to several readers, this is no child's play.
Yes, absolutely. Right.
As far as poetry is concerned.
And for fiction and non-fiction, does that change?
For fiction, it is with Havakal, it is usually 1500 copies as a first print run. For non-fiction, it is not more than 800 copies for the first print run. Okay. And we look out to sell these copies in the first 6 months from the date of its release. I cannot hear you, Chetan.
I said that's enlightening, and I think that's also very, very insightful information for all the participants here, especially for those who are writing poetry and fiction and non-fiction. It's quite a revelation in many ways. What about vanity publishing, self-publishing? So what is your view on that whole way of going about trying to publish?
I have nothing against vanity publishing. Okay. If I remember Namrata held an interview with Bitan for Kitab. where she asked the same question, like, what is your advice to the authors who want to want to use vanity publishing? To which Bitan answered, like, he has nothing against it. We have nothing against vanity publishing. The reason being, vanity publishers, they usually work faster than traditional publishers. Moreover, if an author can spend money on his book, on his or her book, who are we to stop them from spending money? As long as the author is happy with the publication, we are nobody to comment on it.
Okay, awesome. I don't have any further questions, so we can open it up for Q&A, Namrata.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Kiriti.
Thank you, Chetan.
Anybody else wants to ask any questions? Kiriti, I had a question. Meanwhile, somebody else asks the question. Somebody is actually who's not been able to attend today's session has sent me on WhatsApp. So that person is very keen on becoming a translator. And so, she wants to know if there are any workshops, courses, and how does one actually, enter the translator?
Can anybody become a writer?
We just write.
Yes. So anybody cannot become a translator one fine morning. Either one is a writer or he or she is not a writer.
Right.
So he or she, the person who raised this question, either she or he is a translator or she or he is not a translator.
Right.
What I can assume from your question is the person who raised this question wanted to get his or her translation published.
Okay.
Nobody can teach you writing. Nobody can teach you translation. You can always hone your skill, but the basic thing should be there.
Right.
It's a soul work, Namrata. You can always polish your skill. You can always hone your skill, but you cannot imbibe this skill just by looking at others or just by reading a book. You cannot be a writer.
Right.
Either you have it or you don't have it. That's the thing.
Right. Got it. Thank you. Yeah. So
I have a question, if I may.
Sure. Please.
I would like to find out if Mr. Sengupta's publishing house publishes fiction in what kind of genres do you favor, or is any genre open to you?
We work with poetry, fiction, and non-fiction. I think, if I'm not wrong, somebody raised a question whether we publish drama. Hello?
Yeah, they've just raised a question in the chat. Yeah, Ram has just raised a question. Yeah.
Yeah. To Ram, my answer is we would love to, but currently we are not in a position to support that particular genre of writing, because, whether whatever we publish, be it fiction or non-fiction or poetry, we nurture this belief that whatever we publish, we should be able to do justice to the writing. Currently, the staff that we have in-house, we do not read drama. So, we cannot publish drama or plays. But other than drama or plays, we do publish, and we frequently publish fiction, non-fiction, and poetry.
Thank you.
Kirti, hi, Anshuman here from Bombay. I just wanted to know that what is the market for memoirs? Does that genre really work? And it's a non-fiction narrative. That's what it is. So just your views on that.
Let me tell you a real story. We are we have our office in Delhi for the past 2 years, and our connection, our association with the national distributor, the Variety Book Depot, is only 1 year old. We have this memoir called A Bengali Lady in England. It's by Professor Rabindranath Tagore. This is a work of translation, and it is said to be the first memoir by a Bengali lady. Like it was published more than 100 years ago in Bengali. So we published the English translation of that particular memoir, and we released the book sometime in 2019. So after we set our association with Variety Book Depot in Delhi, among all the books we have given them to sell through, through bookstores or online channels, the maximum number of sell came from a Bengali lady in England. So you were asking me about the market of memoir.
Yeah.
It really sells well.
Okay, thank you. That's very reassuring. Thank you so much.
Even, I was talking about Gigi. I was talking about Gigi.
Yeah.
This is sort of a memoir.
Okay.
And it really got, like, it really sold well.
Right. Thanks, Kirti. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anshuman.
I think Humpy has her hand up. Humpy, would you like to go next?
Yes. So I wanted to know that as first-time authors, first-time writers who have never before spoken about publishing or don't know the market, what are the right questions that we should ask our publisher when we approach them?
Yes, you shouldn't talk about market. The first thing authors or writers should learn is to not to talk about market, just focus on writing.
The next question is from Jay. He wants to know if Havakal has any preference for a particular genre in fiction.
What are the subgenres of fiction, may I ask?
Jay, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. The genre I'm writing, or the one I'm interested in, is historical fiction.
Yeah.
And I'm writing, I'm an Indian who lives abroad, but I'm writing about a historical story that actually happens in India and then part of it also abroad. And I want to know, is that something that would be interesting to a publisher such as yours?
Yeah, of course. Please go ahead.
Okay. The next question is from Rita. She wants to know how big is the market for translations in India?
Very poor market. In just single line, the market is very poor. But Namrata, I am curious to know, are we discussing market really? Or we are discussing literature, be it poetry, fiction or non-fiction? Like everybody is like, wants to know about market. Why?
The issue is, okay, the reason why most of them have these questions is all of them are working on their first draft right now, as I had briefed you about the first draft club. And the immediate next step, what they would be doing is approach publishers. And most of them, like as I told you, even when we discussed about inviting you for this session, is that the feedback that we get from literary agents or traditional publishing houses, like the top 5, we are talking about the top 5, Penguin, Bloomsbury and all, is that this genre has no market. Poetry has no market. So, that's an apprehension that we're trying to understand from a publisher, that how does it work? Tomorrow, if they bring that book out and if they approach, how does it work? Would Havakal be a good place to send their manuscripts? And
of course, everybody is welcome. I will personally welcome all of the guests here to submit their manuscript. We don't talk about market as long as the quality of the draft is excellent.
It's fantastic to have you on.
No, we do not publish books other than Bengali and English.
It's fantastic to have you here because it's a very nice new thing that we're getting to hear.
No, I'm literally surprised. Everybody is talking about market.
I'm sure you can see the smiles on the faces just after you said that. You just see just one glance and you can see that everybody's relieved that, okay, here's somebody who wants to hear what we want.
I just want to add one single line here, Namrata. Suppose one of your guests submit his or her first book, first draft to a big house. Suppose by good luck, the house accepts it for publication.
Right.
I would request that particular author not to not to expect overnight stardom with the release of the book. Please don't think about market. We are here to publish your work as long as your work holds merit. There should be some literary merit to your draft. There are, we receive, on an average, we receive 4 to 5 submissions a day. Can you imagine? We receive 4 to 5 submissions a day. Havakal is not a big house. We are not a big house. We are a very moderate house. We receive on an average 4 to 5 submissions a day, and for all the genres, fiction, non-fiction, poetry. There are times when the writers receive response in in just 2-3 minutes, but there are instances where we fail to respond to the query because we have so much of queries every day. We receive so many queries every day, and then maintaining contacts, answering to each and every query. It takes a long time. It's a time-killing thing.
Namrata, I think
and Bitan, I got this shit from Bitan Chakrabarti, the founder of Havakal Publishers. He writes here in Bengali that I'm translating his lines into English for all of you. Market do not produces authors. Authors produce the market.
That's something that it's very impressive. Yes.
Yes, it's written. If you can see, it's written in green ink. He has just passed me this chit. It says that market does not produce authors. Authors produce the market.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question we have is, I like the question by Avantika. Actually, I'm sure a lot of us would find it helpful. Is what kind of stories stand out in the fiction market? Again, are there any kind of voices publishers are looking out for?
What kind of stories?
Yeah, so yeah, that's.
I don't really want to read another romantic story. Something hatke. Like something unusual.
Right. Anisha, I guess you have your hand up. You would like to go next?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Namrata. Thank you. Hello, sir.
Hello.
And I had a very humble question since I have started experimenting in spoken word poetry a lot. And I just wanted to know a little bit about the creative process that you have for your work. And just so I can see, compare notes whether it's happening. It will not happen the same way for every writer. Everyone has a different creative path and a different way of, a different creative emergence and a different creative expression. But I just wanted to know how your creative process is. Thank you.
You want to inquire about my creative process?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, a very interesting question. So, somebody actually dared to ask me some, a different question other than market. Your name is Anisha.
Yes, Anisha.
Yeah, Anisha, my creative process is very complicated. I do not write things that are frequently written or frequently attempted by other poets. Number one. Number two, most of my poetry is based on my observations.
Okay, wow.
Number three, most of my work is based on, my studies. Whatever books I have read, whatever reflections I have made, whatever observations I have or I had, So my writing revolves around my life. Like if I have to cut it short, I write a draft, I polish it further until I'm happy with the final form. And let me tell you, Anisha, it doesn't happen overnight. Even after authoring so many books, like if you just Google my name, you will find how many books I have authored, and the amount of critical appreciation that that I have been able to achieve so far. Even if you ask me to write a poem, because I'm known for my short poems, I mostly write short poems. Even if I have to write 5 lines or 6 lines, or or short poem, I may take a month to finish it. It may be 2 months. It may be 3 months to finish just 5 lines. Because to chisel my thought, to chisel the entire craft, it takes time. It can happen in just 1 hour. It might take a month or 2. So, to sum up my creative process is challenging, Anisha.
Thank you so much for sharing that, sir. So what I understand, it basically does not come with an end date. It never comes with an end date, a deadline. It doesn't come with a deadline.
Right.
Like, sir, after signing up with the FDC program, sorry, I'm taking up a little more of your time because we do not get to meet Kiriti Sengupta every day. So I am just going a little overboard. Yeah. So after we signed up for the FDC program, we have tried to emulate this habit of sitting up and writing every day, at least 100, 200, or even 500 words, whatever you can. And since my creative endeavors are directed towards poetry, I cannot force write poetry. I cannot disciplinize myself.
You cannot force poetry. It should come spontaneously.
Yes. So it just happens on days I am inspired. I wrote some 34 lines of poem a few days back in my own language. I write in Bengali as well as in English. Not so great in Bengali, but a moderate, finesse in English, I would say. So it was a chora in Bengali. We are familiar with that poem in Bengali. Chora. I just wrote a chora, a little rhyme. And I was feeling happy, sir, after that. So I just really wanted to know about the creative process, just because I needed to compare notes with you, that how it happens. Can I disciplinize myself to sit and I am no T.S. Eliot, sir. I cannot sit and revise and create something great in a, just in a deadline period.
Anisha, I would love to look at your poems.
Oh my God.
I'm not an expert with Bengali poetry. Let me admit, it's a fact. I'm not an expert with Bengali poetry, but as far as English poems are concerned, English poetry is concerned, I would love to look at your work.
I'm sorry to barge in.
So you made my day. I would like to connect with you later.
Yeah, you can connect offline.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I think Leena's hand was up. Leena, did you have a question? And then Chirag, we can complete.
Yeah. Hi, Kirti. So my question is, I don't know whether this is about the market, but I'm actually sort of curious to know how do publishers decide whether or not to translate a book to other languages, something that's originally, let's say, submitted in English. How do you then decide whether they should be translated to, let's say, Hindi or Bengali?
Leena, in the past 12 years, we never thought of translating any of our books. In most of the cases, the translators approached us to publish their work. Can you give me a second? We have recently published the translation of a Telugu novel. It's a very, very famous novel. It's called Kakka. The translators have translated it from the original Telugu to English. Okay. When we were approached for the for this project, we looked at the synopsis. We took not more than 5 days to say yes to the translators. In most of the cases, translators or the author, they approach us for publishing the translated book. Look, this is Kakka. It has been reviewed in various places, including the Hindu. So, and then, there is another Telugu collection, Telugu poems, which the translator has translated into English. This is by the very famous poet K. Shiva Reddy. He's a famous poet in Andhra Pradesh, in Telangana. And Professor Sridhar and Alladi Uma, they are the professors in the University of Hyderabad. They approached us to publish their translation of Shiva Reddy's poetry. So when the translators approached us, we looked at 5 sample poems. We said yes in a week's time.
Okay.
So in the past 12 years, unfortunately, Lina, we never thought of, proactively thought of translating a book into other languages.
All right. Thank you. That really helps.
I'm going to jump in because I understood your question a little differently, Lina. But I think that what would probably happen is it will be a function of demand or sales. So if you look at Rashmi Bansal's books, which are about entrepreneurship, I've seen, Zero to Hero and books like that translated into Hindi and multiple languages. And it's a function of sales, I would imagine.
Of course.
If a publisher was to decide to go and, it's a little sad because you go into a bookstore, and I love to go into bookstores, and you go to the Hindi section. Most of the Hindi books, 90% of the Hindi books are like, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari translated into Hindi. It's hardly any original Hindi literature, but most of it is translations which are being sold instead of original Hindi work. So, but yeah, that question's for someone else. Yeah, anyway, sorry.
Yeah. I can see that somebody asked about my contact details.
A lot of them have asked.
Who?
A lot of them have been asking in the chat. I was just waiting.
My contact details are readily available on the internet. You just type my name on Google, and please be careful when you type out my first name. It's not Kirti. People address me as Kirti. I'm not Kirti. I'm Kiriti Sengupta. So my contact details are right there, everywhere.
Good evening, sir. I just wanted to ask one question that you mentioned merits which you decide for publishing. What are those merits which we should, as new writers, keep in mind?
Rag, suppose you are sending me a draft. I read the first paragraph of your story, which has an error in all the lines that make the first paragraph. Error means grammatical issue.
Yeah.
So in that case, your book or your draft has literary merit or not, that comes later. If a writer is not careful about the basic composition, like constructing the sentences, whatever merit it has, we will simply say no.
Thank you. Anything else you would like to add? What else?
The subject.
Okay.
When I say subject, I actually mean the theme. We look at the dialogues. Framing dialogues is an art.
Yes, it is. Okay.
I do not particularly look at conclusion, Chirag.
Wow, that's something.
I do not particularly look at conclusion because we do not always look out for the feel-good vibe. your book may end on a negative note. So be it negative or positive, that should be, that should be organic to the flow of your writing. You did not import or impose a deliberate positive note to the conclusion.
Correct.
To impart that feel-good vibration.
Any particular area of writing, like I'm particularly very impressed with human interest, or rather human drama, family drama kind of stuff. I like that. So is that something that publisher like you would just go through and get, or you would just dismiss it out?
Unless it is too loud, like Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi.
What happens to it, sir?
We are not loud people.
All right. Subtlety and simplicity.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so
much. I have nothing against being loud. But personally, we are not loud people. We don't appreciate something which is very loud.
Thank you so much. Anything else you would like to add? Last line for all of us just beginning to write.
Be organic, follow your heart, and stop, for God's sake, stop thinking about market. Create your own market. Please stop thinking and talking about market. Create your own market.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chirag. Thank you, Namrata. Thank you, Chetan. Thank you to all the guests present here today.
No, we're not done yet. Hold on.
Okay.
I thanked you for my answers.
Oh, for the answers. Okay.
Yes.
I thought that you were concluding the session.
No. I'm concluding my question and your answers. Thank you so much for giving me your time.
Kiriti, Anshuman has a question for you. Do you support voices which Mr. Hornist's read government?
I beg your pardon?
Do you support voices which Mr. Hornist's read government?
I'm still not getting you, Namrata. I'm sorry.
The question is in the chat. Am I audible? The question is in the chat.
Let me explain, because I know Anshuman's book very well. So would you publish something which might be controversial or anti the current establishment?
We don't mind publishing anything that is controversial in the market, quote unquote, in the market. We have nothing against publishing anything that has a literary merit to it.
Makes sense, yeah. Does anybody else wants to ask?
Yeah, I have a question, if I may ask.
Sure, Ram. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so Kiriti, this is Ram here. So I have a question on the, okay, this is a little bit of an obtruse question. There is something which is raw creativity, which is unpolished and which is what comes from the heart. And then there are these tips, techniques, and crafts of writing that, okay, very simple things like show and tell, which is the very basic thing, and then goes on to a lot of things. So I want to know, what is your view on this raw creativity versus, the craft, the art and the craft of writing, which has all these tips, techniques, etc., which probably one would learn in an MFA course.
Have you, Ram, have you heard about raw silk?
Yes, I have.
Do you know raw silk is even more expensive than pure silk sarees?
Yes, it is. It is.
Why? Why?
Because it is that product in its unadulterated form.
And it has a raw texture.
Right.
So if the texture of your writing is raw, if it is not that finely polished, and if it complements the theme of your draft, of your work,
Okay.
we won't mind publishing it as it is.
Oh, okay. That's very good to know, because
not all writing needs, not all draft need polishing.
Okay. That's very heartening to know.
The next, tomorrow morning, if you ever get a chance to meet a poet, please ask the poet to show you a new poem that she or he has written of late.
Okay.
You offer a word, you offer a suggestion to the poet. Ask him or her that please replace this word with the word that I'm suggesting you now. Look out for his or her response. You will understand.
Absolutely spot on, Kiriti, because I write poems, and people come and tell me, the meter is off here. I'm like, okay, I'm not writing for meter. It's the thought. I mean, the raw thought that comes through, even if it is grammatically wrong. Even if it doesn't
I had no clue of your writing, so I gave you an example of poetry.
No, poetry is one of the things I write, and I write poetry largely in my native language, Kannada. I have written a little bit in English, but I completely get that, because people come and tell me it doesn't rhyme and it's off meter, so it really rankles. Even if they put a punctuation mark, it rankles. And some published poets have told me that, okay, your thought is good, but you need to change this. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I understand, but this is what appeals to me. When I change that, I feel that it's polluted. Okay, so this is good to hear. Thank you very much for that.
You're most welcome, Rao.
Arjit, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Namrata, thanks. Hello, Kirti, sir. I have one question regarding the dialogue creation process. Would you like to offer your own take on how you approach to such an exercise?
If I be honest to your question, Arijit, I am hardly a fiction writer. So I cannot possibly offer you guidance on dialogue making.
Okay.
But with my little experience of 12 years, I can tell you that dialogues should sound organic. It shouldn't sound forced.
Okay, but then when it comes to genres, say for example, like historical fiction or anything related to mythology, all right, where the dialogue might tend to deviate from a naturally sounding dialogue.
Yes.
So
you mean the dialect, not the dialogue.
Okay, yeah, that would be the right one.
So be particular. If we are referring to dialect, it's something else. If we are referring to dialogue, that is something else. If we are focusing on historical fiction or something which is a period drama, we have to stick to that particular dialect of that era.
Yes.
Or suppose for a general fiction story, for a general short fiction, if you are portraying a character from the rural area of India, their diction, the construction of their lines, the words they choose, they are not similar to the ones that a person from the urban setup uses. So that's why I'm using the word organic. The dialogue should be organic and it should blend smoothly to the theme of the draft, to the theme or to the subject of the work.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Arijit.
I think that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you so much. It was really, really wonderful having you, and it felt great to hear your thoughts. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. So we shall see you all next Sunday. Chetan, do you have anything to share?
No,
yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Kirti.
Thank you, Namrata. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirti.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sengupta. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.